But there was a clip that made the rounds like last weekend about Chappell Roan talking about how nobody that she knows that has kids is happy. So what I want to do first is watch this clip, and I'd be interested to know what you guys in the chat think of something like this, because I have my own opinions. I do think that Hollywood in general is pro-nihilism and anti-family, but let's listen to this clip and then hear what she has to say.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
Okay. It's a short clip, but it kind of goes to the point, right? So, disclaimer, first things first, is like, look, I'm getting married in September. And we are talking about starting our family, and it's an unbelievably amazing thing to start planning out, especially if you're somebody like me who just never thought that something like that was ever going to happen and that you were never going to be in that position. So to have that opportunity and know that that's something that's going to be possible for you is actually an unbelievably amazing experience. But I also have the benefit of like more perspective and age that I didn't have. She's in her mid-20s. So I did not have that when I was in my mid-20s.
Well, I would say like we know that as the generations go on, like having kids is becoming less and less common, but like I don't know how many Gen Z 24, 25-year-olds actually have an abundance of friends with children. Like, I don't know how common that is anyway, so I'm curious to who she actually knows.
If it's people in the industry.
Yeah. And I mean,
the only reason I brought up my situation here is like anytime you talk about stuff like this, what the comments usually say is something like people without kids talking about kids.
It's always that.
And that's, I get it. You're talking about the theoretical, but this is something that I feel uniquely connected to because I'm at a different place in my life now. And when I was in my mid-20s, I probably would have looked at something like this and just walked right past it and not thought anything of it. But what I do know, and what I think Hollywood proves over and over again, is that Hollywood and corporations in general, they love the nihilism. Unless you're creating products in the realm of products for kids, Hollywood and big corporate America loves the nihilistic approach to a life without kids. They love the idea of dual income, no kids. They love the dinks because it's a life kind of are based around consumerism and consumption.
Well, I think the default narrative right now is having kids sucks. And sure, the economy's not great, and that definitely weighs into people's decisions. But you have this narrative that it is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And which it's not. I mean, it's not. It's an awesome
it's a conversation
thing
that happens a lot at this place of employment because a big part of the discussions that happen, whether it's on IRL or the morning, whenever he's doing the morning show and stuff like that, is conservatives tend to care a lot about the future of this country and the future of the American family. So you're already kind of predisposed to having this discussion.
But I also feel like I'm also giving her the benefit of the doubt with what I just said. She's not just saying, hey, economy bad, the world is scary, I'm not going to have kids. She's outright saying kids are hell, right? I think she compared their living in having children is equivalent of you burning in hell. Like, that's an insane thing. It's not just saying kids aren't for me, I'm not going to advocate for them. It's actively demonizing.
And back
children.
in the
it's
day,
an attack on children.
Like if you saw someone in this situation, say if we were watching a movie and it's the parents, it's kind of the trope, right? The kid doesn't sleep. That was me, by the way. My brother apparently slept through everything. I never slept at all, which is still pretty true all the way to this day. But the idea was always, the parents go through a lot. It's expensive. They don't get much sleep. You're kind of, you're anxious all the time. Did you see the story today about the dad who left his he left the 3 kids, the 10, 6, and 1-year-old at McDonald's so that he could go to a job interview, got arrested. Like, there's all these things, and that's just one specific example that came up today around the world of parenthood. But there's all this anxiety that comes with the idea of being a parent. But when you talk to them, it's like they would never trade it for anything in the world.
Of course. I mean,
because they don't, it's not just that they love their children, but they understand, like, I think that one of the things that's been lost is we kind of have lost the understanding that it's not necessarily about your happiness.
Well,
it's about something bigger than you.
This is another example of an issue, like a pop culture or mainstream narrative that is just completely out of touch with what's actually going on in the ground level. That when you talk to people who have children, they love it. But the way, like I said, the default narrative is that it's hell, right? That you can't do it. You have laws that don't make it easy. I mean, to be a parent, like, it's ridiculous. Like, I feel for that guy that got arrested because, I mean, listen, I don't know if McDonald's is where I'd leave my kids to do a job interview. I'm sure I could come up with alternatives. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, why is he getting that job? To provide for his kids. In his attempt to provide for his kids, he's now being punished and will likely lose them depending on the state he lives in.
And lose his ability to get jobs because it completely changes, his ability to work.
And so there's this, like, attack from our institutions and the news, and an anti-family kind of stance that's popped up, and they think it's popular. They think this is what Americans actually want, but it's not true. It's like what's another, like the deportations of the gang members. They're like, oh no, he was just a father. He leaves back.
No, he was an MS-13.
No, he was a gang member. So it's like they think these issues and their narrative gels with the the average person, and it does not.
Well, the other thing is, like, given who she is, given her persona, the drag makeup, she's kind of pigeonholed into having, look, she can talk about her, bucking the system all she wants. When you run a prepackaged persona of a leftist musician, they're going to be expected to kind of have leftist takes. It would actually be more counterculture for her to be more of a Lana Del Rey if she was to actually be different from what the music industry is presenting you. Well, so her opinions are pretty much what you expect for somebody that's a modern pop star.
Right. And I think definitely...
And I think she's young and she will grow. I don't honestly know if her message will grow, because I think that the industry mandates a lot of time that you hold a specific image, and unless you're somebody of immense success, far and beyond even her.
Like her and...
The other one that I can think of is Olivia Rodrigo.
Not just her.
Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah. They're like the new girl bosses, right? So they're still holding on, propping up this girl boss thing. You're not seeing them with, like, with the Kardashians, every time they're dating someone new, it's news. With this new kind of generation of these pop stars and young actresses, you're not really seeing that. And maybe it is because they're only in their mid-20s. Maybe that's something that'll happen in 5 to 10 years. But, you're just not seeing, like, them pushing any type of family values, whether it's dating, whether it's just saying they enjoy the presence of children. You're not seeing any of that. It's like, it's my world. I'm the king of my own world. I'm a girl boss.
I think society in general, we don't even have to make this about gender. Society in general is more narcissistic than it's ever been. I don't know if it's unique to just America. I think social media has created this to be a worldwide problem, that, our inherent narcissism, because we're having our reflection kind of shown back at us each and every day, will show out in how we spend our money, how we spend our time. And we don't even have to just talk about the musicians, talk about the rise of the idea of the dinks, the dual income, no kids. Disney shifting its entire business model at the parks to accommodate that type of person rather than families who have to save and scrounge to be able to put out or to go to the parks once a year.
Yeah,
right? It's the rich millennial couple with no entanglements that allows them to spend the money from their laptop job on a bunch of products that are imminently disposable.
Now, it's important to know that too, like, Chappell Roan or Chappell Roan.
Chappell Roan.
Chappell?
Not Chappell.
Chappell.
Dave Chappell.
Dave Chappell. Well, so she's like considered like an icon and an ally of the LGBTQ community. And if I'm not mistaken, they have some of the lowest rates when it comes to being parents.
Well, yes.
For one
that
reason,
makes perfect sense.
There's a lot of reasons for that make a lot of sense. But nonetheless, like, I don't think what she's saying, like, it's on brand for her, not just being a young pop star in Hollywood, but it's on brand for her audience that it's all about them and their appearance. It's not about family values. So, hey, I will say too, dude, every time I see a clip from this podcast, the Call Her Daddy podcast, it's always like one of the worst things I've ever seen.
It's like if Mary, by the way, I saw somebody in the chat saying, they said Mary quit, so long, Sims. That was an April Fool's joke. She will be back tomorrow. I was also told today that apparently you're supposed to stop the April Fool's jokes at noon.
Since when?
Today was the first time I'd ever heard of that. How do you adjust for time zones?
I think that's an April Fool's joke.
Maybe it was. It was like an April Fool's Inception joke.
Yeah.
I think Mary would talk about what was it you just said right before I interrupted
her being like an icon for the LGBTQ community.
At the end there,
it doesn't hurt her brand.
Yeah, I mean,
it's on par.
Oh, Call Her Daddy. So I think Mary would agree with you that like one of the worst things that's been made, that's been put out in the last however long for women is the Call Her Daddy podcast and the rise of that type of content that kind of feeds into certain aspects.
And again, if she was just saying, hey, kids are not for me because of X, Y, and Z reasons, no one would really bat an eye. It's the fact that she's painting it in such a negative light and then laughing about it. Yeah. It's insane.
I mean, I give her the leeway that she's young, right? And how she feels. There is an issue that like 20, I think she's 26. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I think she's 26. Like, depending on who you talk about, there's kind of an urgency to the idea of starting a family that I think conservatives don't realize that a lot of the rest of the country just doesn't have.
I will say the frightening thing about her specifically compared to a Sabrina Carpenter or a Olivia Rodrigo is she was just a TikTok star that blew up over the last
No. She was with a label previously and went to a prestigious singer-songwriter camp.
That's fine. But she is not like, that's not the usual route you see these pop stars go. Like a lot of, like the Disney to pop star pipeline is very strong still. Like, so she could have been nothing, but TikTok helped promote her. Like she was a singer, she's a performer. She was really small. And then TikTok kind of propelled her to this fame, and now everyone's picking her up. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, her being so small, I would assume she's held these views for a while, and that's kind of, it's worrying in the sense that I would consider her a normie at that point. And so if normies hold these views, man, the country's in trouble.
Yeah, I think they
But I don't think they truly do. I think it's a minority.
I do think that they think 27 or 26 is like younger than it is, and that you've got all this time in front of you when that's not necessarily the case. Not for everybody.
You have forever until you don't, and then it hits you fast.
And there just isn't a lot of media that glorifies the other side of that aisle, right? So we've covered Evie magazine before, endlessly on this channel. That it's the conservative version of Cosmo for women, pushing more traditional values, but that's just a bug in the grand scheme of things compared to all of the money that's pumped into more progressive outlets and magazines, which give a very, very different idea of what your ideal future should be to young women. And one of the things we were going to talk about today, which I ended up bumping for another topic because I felt like it was too serious, was this article about how the show Adolescence, which we talked about last week because of how people perceive it to have kind of whitewashed crimes in the UK for the sake of a show that's about incel culture at the age of 13, which is not possible because you're not an incel at 13. And knife violence and all this stuff. Well, they're showing it at schools in the UK now, which means some wheels got greased and they're putting the show out in the UK in the public school system. And then they're teaching anti-misogyny classes to kind of combat what they believe is like the message that's being shown to boys. But nobody ever talks about like, what about the media that women are consuming? And what can we do to give a more full understanding of the world to young women?
it's not a slasher film, and what I mean by that is,
well, no, they're not saying that. It's
when boys engage in destructive behaviors, it's apparent, right?
Yeah.
It's violence, it's drug use, it's in your face, you can see it. When girls do it, it's not like that. It's much more long and played out, where you lead to like these podcast appearances with Chappell, Roan, and yes, it's seemingly harmless that she's going on and complaining about kids, but what does that message do to women in 15 years?
Yeah.
Right? So you don't see the negative effects right away.
I agree. And the other thing is it's couched in a type of like power that's given to them that makes it very hard for people to, like I've said all the time, like my generation, I'm 38, like we were taught like women are going to be able to do anything in the world, equal rights, all of this stuff. But as the world changed and as gender roles changed, they didn't really address how young men were supposed to react to that. Like nobody really said, okay, the world has completely changed. You know, the gender roles your parents knew, the gender role your grandparents knew, that's not really the thing anymore. And that's fine. And we all championed that, but nobody really taught the guys what they're supposed to do with that, because now their fundamental role in society has at least shifted a bit. And they didn't know what to do. And I think we're still struggling with that today. We have a 20 from Jason Dutton. Were you in Yellowstone? Being young is not an excuse for being so nihilistic towards children. I really hate the fact pop culture rewards hating children. I mean, again, I think that much like some people go through their edgy atheist phase, and as you grow and learn, it's possible for you to see the world differently and change. I would say you're probably right that the industry she's chosen to make a profession out of makes that harder, because they reward not having kids, because it's very hard to do your job when you're late. Just think about the lifespan of some of these pop stars. And 9 months that's a career killer.
It's also important to note that like our school systems have been failing for decades. Like it's not a good system. And so when there's no true good role models in children's lives growing up, they end up getting their advice from pop stars. Yeah. Right. And so it just perpetuates this problem, and it's a vicious cycle. So I'm not surprised that we're here. I'm like kind of offended, but I'm not shocked by any means.
I'm not either. So I guess the question is, what do we do in a society where we have no goals outside of our own self-gratification, where the act of having children, which is something that is supposed to be about selflessness and sacrifice, is demonized because it doesn't allow you to kind of indulge your every whim? Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.